Okay, let's create the invoice page now. Open pages folder, create a new file called invoice.php. Inside of this file, we're going to start with a PHP tag, then ID equals URL and get param, and we're looking for ID in our URL. Then if isn't empty ID, we're going to do something, and that's basically this is where we can close PHP tag. Now if isn't empty ID, after if isn't empty, we close PHP tag as well, and this one actually will be opening PHP and then closing one here. So now in between these two we will put some content. Now to start with, we need to put the standard HTML page structure here, because we're not going to be using header and footer. We don't want the rest of the page to be displayed within the invoice. Invoice should be blank white page and just the content of the invoice basically, so that they can print it out if they wish to. Okay, I can use clips here in my application, so I just click on that and drag and drop onto my page. If you don't know how to create the standard structure of the page, then please pause this video now and copy the entire content which I've just actually dragged onto the page here, as this is what we need for this specific page. So now that you've copied this, or you've retyped the entire thing, obviously we can start moving on to our statement after if is an empty ID, and we start with object order, which is new order class, and now we get order variable, which will assign object order get order, and we pass the ID parameter. Now we check if is an empty order, then we're going to process. Otherwise it's going to be just blank page, so we put this second curly brace right at the end. Okay, so now that we know that the ID is in the URL and that the order with this ID exists, we need to get all items. So items equals object order get order items. This method already exists in our order class. We need to pass the ID of the order, so that's all fine. Now object catalog equals new catalog. Okay, now object user equals new user. Okay, so we have object user instantiated as well, and user equals object user get user, and we have order client. We're passing the ID of the client basically here. Now we will also need object country, which was new country class, and after this object business equals new business class. So quite a few classes, as you can see, that we're going to be using inside of our invoice page. Then business equals object business get business. All these classes and methods are already created. Then we have object basket equals new basket. And that's about it when it comes to instantiation of the classes. Now one pretty important thing actually is to obviously, if we leave it like this, then everyone who just going to provide the ID of any order will be able to preview the invoice for the order of anyone basically. So obviously we need to restrict access to these invoices only to the person who's logged in, and obviously we can check it by comparing the ID, the session ID of the logged in user to the client ID of the order. So if is an empty order, and actually we can do it something like this, and session get session, and we need to provide login underscore front equals order client let's put this on these two things actually on separate lines so that we can see it clearly. So obviously these two conditions have to be met. So order has to have some values, and session ID, basically ID of the logged in user, has to match the ID of the client of this order. So that's all fine. Let's move to the next video and start actually populating all this information. And I mean, we've already populated them, just putting them into the specific formats.